So a couple things to think about when you're considering having your kitchen renovated. You know, what do you use it for? Really, I mean, is it obviously just a kitchen space, or do you entertain in that space? Or are you hoping to have a large island created so that, you know, you can entertain around that space? Maybe the kids can pull their chairs up and do their studies there. Maybe you'd like to have the sink installed in the island as opposed to in the exterior wall. So now you've got additional counter space and you can work at the island. You know, a lot of features have been kind of just new to the market too that maybe a lot of people haven't heard about. Common things right now we're hearing more about are people that would prefer to have a built-in coffee maker with a water supply line already connected to it. Other things that you know, you may hear of under cabinet lighting. We also have you know, a lot of interest currently in what's called toe kick lighting that goes underneath the bottom of the cabinet so it lights up at night, more of an accent. We've even seen people that have come to us and want lighting on top of their cabinets to accent the tops. In addition to that, there's lighting that can be done inside the cabinets. There's lighting that can be done on features like the faucet. And then there's even lighting that can be done in and around prep stations, areas where you would need to see really well. So for instance, if you're looking at your ceiling and the can light configuration or maybe the lighting configuration doesn't give you proper lighting over the stove, that might be a good idea to go ahead when you're doing that update to consider putting in new recessed lighting or additional recessed lighting to identify prep stations and areas where you need that light. A couple other features that come to mind, a very recent one that I hadn't really thought much about when we do some of our bath renovations. We do heated floors. I had a client ask us if we would be able to do heated floors throughout the tile in his kitchen. Just a feature that his wife loves in their bathroom and prefers it in the kitchen space. They like to be able to walk barefoot throughout their house, and gosh, what wouldn't make it even nicer if it was heated floors. So in addition to lighting features and other components, obviously the Bluetooth connectivity is huge nowadays. People are constantly looking for ways to simplify and just make it easy. And so when you're looking at appliances, consider the fact that maybe you could update for a little bit more to have the connectivity between not only just the stove and your phone to set things, to preheat things, or to check temperatures, but also the ability to turn on fans that are above that stove. Let's just say maybe you're at church and you're hoping to come home to a nice cooked meal, and you want to make sure that you vent some of the fumes out. You can turn the fan on from your phone, so it's kind of a nice feature. Also, you could even have water sitting maybe in your microwave so that when you get within 30 minutes of your house, you remember to set the microwave to go off and heat water up for you, so when you get home you've got warm water for whatever you may be making. Prep station. Currently, where do you prep your food before you're cooking it, or let's just say, where are you cutting any of your vegetables or your meat? Is it all right next to the stove, or do you have a specific prep station? And from there, where are the cutting boards in relation to that? One of the worst things is to have poultry out of the bag and now you've got your hands all over it, and you need a cutting board, you need a knife, and you need a station prepped and ready to go, and you don't want to be dragging that all over your kitchen. So just identifying where you're going to be doing that in your kitchen would help on the front end, so we can best align and make sure that the cabinet space and the drawers are properly fit for those appliances and necessities. The other thing I always bring up is, the triangle layout. It is just functional, and it is very important to make sure that you have some sort of a triangle between the sink, the stove, and the refrigerator. So however that lays out to you, that's important. You would never want to put everything on one wall. It would be really weird. If you currently reside in a house where you have hardwoods throughout, and the renovation that you're hoping to do is to carry those hardwoods through into the kitchen, something to think about there is that you're probably going to have to resurface those floors so that when they are installed, everything matches. So if you're thinking about that and you've got floors right now, your kitchen renovation could require resurfacing all of the floors that are adjacent to that as well. So another feature that a lot of people inquire about is having a coffee station built into their kitchen, whether that's an additional cabinet or a drawer, or maybe, like we talked about earlier, a separate banquette, or if it's as nice as having a Miele self-serve installed into the cabinet in the wall. There are a lot of options, and of course the prices go through the roof sometimes depending on what you're hoping for. I will say the nicest ones that I have seen are the ones that are built in with the water supply line connected from the back side. They're very clean. The nice part about it is that you can set it and it times, and you don't have to worry about a thing, and you can literally as quick as you wake up and walk out the door, have a warm cup of coffee on your way out. Something a lot of people think of when they're considering their kitchen renovation is a beverage station. And I mean a beverage station that's kind of aside from the coffee maker, where you've got a completely separate area that you store cold beverages, whether that's built into your island or on the end of a cabinet. It may just be a small fridge, it could be just a wine chiller, but just someplace to identify that that is for beverages only. A couple of reasons why: it keeps all the volume out of your refrigerator, and it gives you more functionality of your refrigerator, so it's not jammed up with a bunch of extra cans and bottles or high C's, my favorite. So another thing to think about if you have a distance from your stove to where your water supply is or your faucet would be a pot filler. Kind of a unique added touch and fixtures. Would require us to run some water behind your stove up that wall, but a pot filler adds a couple of different things: a unique touch to that look, finished feature there that has the ability to fill a pot while it's on top of the stove. So we talked about this before, but I'll talk about it constantly because it just adds a really good accent to a kitchen space. But under cabinet lighting installed in a unique way to accent not only the backsplash, but provide down lighting in the event that you don't want all of your kitchen lights on, but you want to have sort of a mood set in your space. Technology has come such a long way, and now we have all kinds of really cool features because of it. And one of the things that you see a lot of nowadays are touchless components. When you're in the kitchen, like I mentioned, if your hands are dirty from touching raw meat or whatever, it's nice to have touchless features. Say for instance your faucet, where you can run your hand underneath it and water will turn on, or in the case of a stove button or knob where you need to quickly turn it on or off. So if you're converting your appliances from electric over to gas, there is a good chance that there's going to be some changes that are required for your hood vent. Usually the height of what would be there for an electrical versus a gas is going to need to be raised up to meet the standard codes. But in addition to that, sometimes the vent is going to have to be replaced with the proper vent to be able to, one, not catch on fire, and two, remove the exhaust that's necessary there to evacuate it out of the house. We often see electric vents going into the attic, which you don't want to do, because if you're cooking anything that has any moisture content to it, now you've got all that in your attic space. So just having that done professionally and done right is a huge necessity when you're considering converting over from electric to gas. In addition to gas, you're going to be able to have a quicker flare rate when you're cooking. So I mean, if you're at the stove and you're trying to sear something, you're creating a lot more exhaust. So you want to have a fan that can evacuate those fumes and pull them properly through the kitchen space, and then of course out the side of the house or out into the attic space through a flume there. So if you've converted over to gas, now you've got the ability to do a lot of different cooking things that you weren't capable of with electric. With that though, obviously, is the heat and then the potential for flare up. And so having the proper exhaust fan with the right CFM is a huge necessity, and pairing that well with the unit that you install is important. So working with your appliance coordinator on that's huge. We have a few really cool vendors that we work with that will have a lot of different displays and options for us to look at when it comes to making the decisions. But as I said, with gas, you'll have the potential for flare up, and you want to be able to exhaust those fumes as quickly as possible. So as far as a range hood goes, there are a few options to think about. In some cases, if you have an above mount microwave, that's usually already going to have the fan and the filters installed into it. I would say those are probably on the lower end of its capability. A lot of those just recirculate back into the kitchen space. But if you're going to convert over to a gas range, you're certainly going to have a couple of things that are going to be necessary. The ability to exhaust more fumes, because cooking with gas will have more flare up. But in addition to that, a lot of those fumes are going to have some oil and debris in them that you're going to want to filter. So considering the right hood vent is necessary for that. Having the filters that can, one, make sure that if you're filtering it back into the air, you're not just blowing the grease from your bacon back into the kitchen space. It actually will filter it. Or secondly, if you're filtering it into the vent through the attic or out the side of the house, that it does its job. Really cool thing to think about too, if you're looking at a hood, is that the filters can be removable and put in the dishwasher. One of the coolest features, I would say, is that after you've cooked bacon, and a lot of that grease is built up in that vent. You just take them down, stick them in the dishwasher next time you run it, and they just click right back in. One last thing that comes up every once in a while is to tie in a Central Vac system for their kitchen. If you don't have a dog that does that for you, it's the coolest feature. To be able to put into the toe kick, sweep all of your dust, debris, crumbs, anything that would be in the kitchen straight to the Central Vac gate. Push the button, it turns on, and immediately you've cleaned that space. Just a nice feature to add, and adds just a easier functionality to cleaning that space for you. So that's a wrap. I hope everything that we talked about just gets a little bit of an inspiration for you to think about what it would be like for you to completely transform your space and make it more functional, inviting, and more modern for your taste. Obviously a lot of the things that you want to think about are some of the things we mentioned, but if there's other things that you're hoping to, really have just in your space to make the most use out of it, shoot me a message. I'd love to just have a quick text or a phone call with you, talk about them. Pretty sure the dog just farted behind you. It stinks. You probably don't
Well, you
smell
use
it.
that for Foley.
Yeah, right. Oh God, it smells so bad.